Right, let's take a look at today's profile. More descending than climbing on stage 8. A long roll down to the flat as the race heads towards Murcia. Then out again onto a circuit which goes over the Cresta del Gallo twice. A sharp little climb with a tricky descent which should get rid of all the sprinters save for the likes of Sagan and Degenkolb. Look out for Alejandro Valverde too, motivated by finishing in his hometown.
Well, it's under 9 kilometres remaining now, and Peter Sagan finds himself in a quandary. He is the only acknowledged sprinter in this remaining group that split and then reformed on the descent of the Cresta del Gallo, containing all the big names of the overall classification, as Danny Navarro just rides off the back of that, showing his battle wounds. So it's been a story of the day. We've seen so many riders go down, and that is the another sign of the damage being inflicted. That is Rojas there, still bearing the scars. Well, Peter Sagan's come off now, banging his frustration, taking it out on the doctor's car, and he seems to have come to a grief, possibly, arguably, with a motorbike camera, or one of the press motorbikes, kicking his own bike now, absolutely incensed. We didn't see what happened, but he's furious, and he's clearly blaming someone else. So it's just been the most nervy, difficult, hard day. And Peter Sagan was perfectly placed there to done so much of the hard work to pull off a stage win. His shorts are ripped to pieces. His day is over. He's just going to roll in, trying to absorb his fury. But whatever that was,
I mean, like it must have been
he was blaming a motorbike, clearly.
It seems, I mean, Peter Sagan doesn't crash like that on a random piece of road. He must have been hit by somebody, clipped by a motorbike. I mean, it looks like a nasty crash. You don't often see your shorts as ripped up as that. But yeah, I think that motorbike rider, if that was the case, is lucky not to have been punched in the face.
Well, he's still arguing with the doctor, who's possibly trying to see if there's anything wrong he can help him with.
Look at that.
Got a horrible road rash on his left upper thigh there, and that'll be agony, really. Here's your trio of riders now. 7 kilometres to go. Let's just recap this very fluid situation, changing all the time. Jose Gonçalves for Caja Rural, Alberto Losada from Katusha, and Kenny Elissonde, the tiny little climber from Française des Jeux. Now it's a move from Jose Gonçalves. He's going to try and just force the pace a bit. He's seen the writing on the wall, because that's a big group of immensely strong riders behind, and he knows that they'll chase. And they are just working out what happens next. Well, it's just one of the most extraordinary stages. It looked reasonably innocuous. It looked a day where you almost might expect a big breakaway to get up the road and the GC guys to have a day off and let them duke it out amongst themselves. But it's been far from that, as Fraile tries to react again to a move from Lotto Soudal. Is that Adam Hansen?
It is, yeah.
He's setting a record, of course, for his 13th consecutive Grand Tour. Came to grief on the Tour de France and gained lots of plaudits and lots of friends for the way he battled through to the finish in Paris. And here he is on the offensive in his 13th consecutive Grand Tour, bringing Fraile in the King of the Mountains jersey with him, as Gonçalves continues to raise the pace, asking the question of Losada and Elissonde whether they can live with him. In the end, this might backfire on him if he drags them all the way to the later stages, where they will start to...
Well, I'm sure he's not worried about Losada in the sprint. I mean, sorry, not Losada, but Elissonde. He's a pure climber, he won't be a threat. So, in theory, Elissonde can sit there and not really say, I'm not interested because I'm going to get beaten in the sprint anyway. But he's third place is better than nothing, that's for sure.
Well, the indications are that it won't be long before these three are caught, because 3 seconds appears to be the gap now. Hansen is back, so that little move has come back. Hansen, though, continues to work, maybe setting things up for a teammate, I don't know. Don't know who else from Lotto Soudal has survived this cull. Of course, we saw his teammate there, acknowledged sprinter Chris Bookmans, come to horrible grief.
This is
back in Murcia, so it certainly won't be Bookmans. He is on his way to hospital.
No, I mean, this is all playing out perfectly into the hands of Valverde as well. If Valverde does want to go for a sprint, you have to remember Valverde in his younger years, he was a bunch sprinter from these sort of groups easily. So, but whether he's got the motivation, you'd imagine he does, considering it's his hometown. I think now that Sagan's not there, he will now believe that he's actually got a chance. And he's still got his teammates, and they're playing a very careful game. They're not on the front showing themselves. They'll be waiting for the last moments to do a lead out if Valverde does have that move up his sleeve.
Peloton agrupado, it's all back together. That's only half the story, really, because this is nothing like the full peloton. This is, what, a third of it, maybe a half at best.
Yeah, it's about 56, about 60 riders, 50 riders, I'd say.
That is Luis Leon Sanchez there, who's been showing every intention of trying to win this stage pretty much the whole way, but he is at the back of this group. And at the front now, maintaining some sort of, it's Trek Factory. Interestingly, they must have a rider in there who they are backing for this stage. It might well be, it could be Danny or Boy van Poppel. Danny would be the more favoured of the two, but quite often we see Boy van Poppel working for his younger brother Danny, so maybe it's one of them. Interesting to see whether Daniele Benati is still there, of course. Often the lead-out man, a sprinter for Tinkoff Saxo.
No, there's not. There's only Micah left there. So they've used up most of their team before riding all day to set up Sagan, and now they're in this moment. It's just Micah left, and I think that could be Jesper Hansen, I think, on the front there for Tinkoff in second position.
Well, 2.6 kilometres remaining, and a really fragile situation all round. But there is a stage win up for grabs here on this really attritional stage, much more demanding in so many ways than you could have imagined, and much more unpredictable. Chris Froome there in that group.
Here we go. So Rojas has moved back up even after that crash. See the Movistar riders a bit further back. We've got the two riders here with Quintana being looked after, who's riding his sort of GC race. But Valverde is where we see the other green helmets. He's moving himself into a position to kind of do the sprint. He's dropping back a bit.
Well, Rojas, of course, is a sprinter. Former Spanish national road race champion.
A flyer from Hansen, is
Doesn't win. It's Adam Hansen again, determined to ride this out now. Hansen attacks with 2 kilometres to go, and virtually the whole cycling world will be willing this man to get home on his own. But that is a big ask with this group, and still lots of ambition remaining in this group. They're not going to let him go, and that is a long way to ride out a stage victory on your own. Tinkoff Saxo determinedly trying to get across to Hansen.
It is a perfect move, though, because this isn't a real fully fledged peloton, and it hasn't got the whole lead-out trains. Everyone's tired, everyone's run out of domestique, so it's a very astute move from Hansen to do that. Normally it wouldn't work with the main peloton, but the group like this, it is very possible.
So he's got a couple of seconds, if that, just 1 second, dangling off the front. Adam Hansen from Lotto Soudal. Just seeing what he can do here, seeing if he can get away, seeing if he can break the elastic. Movistar very keen on bringing him back. Is this for Valverde? Is Rojas possibly going to try and contest this sprint, having come through, having come to grief on the descent, as Adam Hansen takes them through the final kilometre on his own now. They still haven't got to him. What can he do? Can he hold this effort off? There are no big sprinters trains here working. Movistar, though, are the team showing most interest to bring this man back. The gap remains constant. They haven't found the answer to Adam Hansen's attack just yet. So Hansen then, the road just gently rising in front of him. He takes one little look under his right arm, and he sees that they're closing now. Cajarural trying to bring it back. They've got 2 riders up the front, and I think that is Spadagli there for MTN Quebeca. Looking very confident, a class sprinter in this disparate field. There's bits and pieces of riders here. No one quite sure who they're working for or who might emerge from this pack to take the win. That's all over, though, for Hansen. He's caught Spadagli then in second wheel. Surely this is Spadagli's day, as he sees, if he looks over to the left, he sees a big challenge laid down now from Trek Factory Racing. That's Jasper Stuyven takes the win for Trek Factory. Much frustration then from the rider in second place there for Cajarural, but a surprise victory from a surprise source, a stage win for Jasper Stuyven of Trek Factory. But bits and pieces of riders all over this course into Murcia today. A tremendously damaging stage.
It was reasonably comfortable for Stuyven in the end, as you can see from the side angle, but might not have been had the fastest man left in the lead group not been taken out by what we think was a neutral service motorbike. And in the absence of the guilty party, Peter Sagan's anger was aimed at the bodywork of the medical car and the front wheel of his own bike. It was clear from his injuries that he'd slid along on the seat of his pants, then just his seat, his pants having given out. As he rolled in 5.5 minutes down, he wanted no camera near him, especially one being carried on a motorbike. So here's the result. Stuyven from Pello Bilbao and Kevin Reza, with Jose Joaquin Rojas getting up from his nasty fall to finish 9th, and Nicolas Roach the best placed of the big names in 10th. Alejandro Valverde and Esteban Chavez were right behind him, and all the favourites, Dan Martin and TJ Van Garderen accepted of course, were in that 48-strong group on the same time. And a good number of that group were men who'd had to pick themselves up off the floor to finish the stage, including the man who finished first.
Yeah, we were all together with the team, and suddenly I saw bikes flying in the air, and I was full on braking, and I locked the back wheel, but I couldn't avoid the guys on the ground, and I took a tumble, landed on my wrists, and so they are hurting now still. So we'll see how that goes. But it was chaos out there, and I just jumped on the bike and went back on adrenaline, and in the final you just try to ignore the pain and go for it, and it went pretty okay, I think.
Unlike Lotto Soudal's Chris Berkmans, who stopped breathing at one point after his crash and only started again after a tube was put down his throat, the good news is that there are no fractures or hemorrhaging. He's in hospital with facial injuries.
Jelle, 50k out, it looked like a nasty one, and your teammate Chris Berkmans went down. What did you see?
Yeah, I saw he was drinking of his bottle, and there was a hole in at the side of the road.
A pothole.
Yeah, and he didn't see it, I think, and he went in it with his front wheel, and he crashed in the
gutter.
In the gutter, and his bike went even over my head, so it went pretty high. I don't know how it is with him or the rest of the guys, but it was a nasty crash, yeah.
Less serious than Berkman's, but nonetheless out of the race, were TJ Van Garderen with a broken right shoulder, Nasser Bouhanni with injuries that haven't been disclosed by his team, and Dan Martin, who went to hospital with what looked like a broken collarbone, although that's not confirmed.
More or less, we were trying to save energy moving through the middle of the bunch. It was a giant crash, obviously. I think a lot of people looked hurt. A few of us stopped with Dan. It was pretty clear he wasn't getting back on the bike, so yeah, we just did our best to continue on, and it's a real shame for the team. We kind of put a lot of our hopes on Dan for the overall classification. He was sitting third. We're starting to get some momentum as a team, and so it's a really rough day for us. But like what happened to us in the Tour de France last year, we'll refocus our ambitions and go for breakaways, try to win stages, and I'm sure we'll talk about the new tactics over dinner and tomorrow morning.
Chris, some of that was pretty sketchy. You must be glad to have got through that in one piece.
Yeah, very glad. That was a really sketchy final there. You could see a few guys came off. You see a lot of guys coming back with dust all over them and bruises and cuts and everything. But glad to tick that one off the box now. And unfortunate what happened to Sagan in the final. It looked like he got hit by a motorbike there in the last few Ks.
Did you see that?
I heard it right next to me, which is unfortunate. One of those things you just don't want to see in the sport.
And Sagan lost more than skin today. He lost the chance to take green jersey points. Esteban Chavez picked up 4 and Alejandro took 5 for 11th place, edging Sagan into 3rd, the pair of them tied on 61. And the result of all the chaos and crashing today is no change in the top 10, apart from the removal of Dan Martin from 3rd place. Nicolas Roche moves up 1, and so does everyone else behind him, which brings Mikel Nieve into the top 10. Chris Froome is now 11th. So Esteban Chavez survives into the second week of the race in the red jersey, and crashes notwithstanding, looks a good bet to keep it until the rest day on Tuesday.
How are you? What injuries have you got? I can't see any scratches.
No, I'm okay. In Spain, the people say chapa y pintura. Is today for me. Chapa y pintura, no problems.
They just scraped some paint off. Okay.
Yeah. And tomorrow another day, difficult, nervous day. Tomorrow we have another round, another fight. We're gonna keep the red jersey another day.
Wonderful. The best of luck. Thank you.